I never should have agreed to lead that private tour, but the money was good and the request seemed simple enough. My name is Renata Vasquez, and I have worked as a senior tour guide at the Catacombs of Saint Sebastian in Rome, Italy, for 11 years. In that time, I've walked every documented passage, memorized every official ossuary chamber, and learned to read the silence that lives in bone filled rooms. The catacombs are my second home, or at least I thought they were. The request came through our administrative office on a Tuesday morning in October. A private collector, someone with academic credentials and the right permits, wanted access to the older sections. Nothing unusual there. We get researchers quarterly. I was assigned because I knew the layout, spoke English well enough, and had clearance for the restricted zones. The client arrived at 4 in the afternoon. Older gentleman, Swiss accent, expensive leather notebook. He wanted to photograph architectural details in the lower sections, he said. Document the bone arrangements for a comparative study. I nodded, checked his paperwork twice, and let him down. We descended through the main tourist route first. The usual corridors, the usual explanations. He took notes but didn't seem particularly interested until we reached the third switchback stairwell, the one that drops below the water table. That's where most tours end. That's where ours should have ended. Is there another level? He asked. I paused on the landing. Officially, no. This is as far as the restored sections go. But unofficially, I should have said no, should have turned us around right there. Instead, I told him the truth. There's an older section, sealed off in the 1930s, structural concerns, water damage. It's not safe, and it's not on any tour map. He smiled. I have additional permits for unstable sections. He did. I checked them 3 times, so I took him down. The passage to the third level is behind a maintenance door that most staff don't even know exists. The air changes as soon as you cross the threshold. Colder, heavier, the kind of cold that settles in your chest and stays there. I clicked on my industrial flashlight and felt the beam struggle against the darkness. We walked for maybe 10 minutes. The walls here are older, rougher, less restoration work, more original Roman stonework. The client kept stopping to photograph corbels and archway joints, professional enough. I started to relax. Then we reached the ossuary chamber. I didn't remember a chamber being here. I'd been down to the third level only twice before, both times with maintenance crews, and we'd never gone this deep. But there it was, a wide arched doorway leading into a circular room maybe 30 feet across, and inside thousands of skulls. They were arranged in perfect rows, all facing the entrance, not stacked, not piled, arranged, positioned, each one turned at the exact same angle, empty sockets staring directly at where we stood. The precision was impossible, unsettling, like they'd been waiting. Remarkable, the client whispered. I stepped closer, my light swept across the room. The skulls went back farther than I could see, hundreds, maybe more, and every single one faced us. That's when I noticed the dust. There was dust everywhere down here, decades of it, centuries in some places, on the floor, on the walls, on the bones themselves, except inside this chamber. Inside, the dust had been disturbed recently, very recently. I could see patterns in it, drag marks, footprints maybe, disturbance across the entire floor within the last 48 hours, I'd guess. Maybe less, but that was impossible. No one had accessed the third level in over a decade. I knew that for certain. The maintenance logs were clear. The last entry was from 2012, a structural inspection after an earthquake. The door had been sealed since then. I'd unsealed it myself less than an hour ago. Who arranged these? The client asked. I don't know. My voice came out quieter than I intended. This chamber isn't on any map I've seen. He stepped past me into the room. His footsteps echoed wrong, too many echoes, like the sound was bouncing off more surfaces than existed. I stayed in the doorway. Something in my chest told me not to go farther, not to cross that threshold. The skulls watched, patient, silent, waiting for something I couldn't name. The client photographed for maybe 5 minutes. Then he stopped, put his camera down, stared at the back wall. Renata, he said slowly, when did you say this level was sealed? 2012. And before that? 1937. Major structural work. They closed off everything below the second level. He nodded, pointed his flashlight at the far wall. Then how do you explain that? I looked, scratched into the stone, rough and fresh, were words in Italian. Li abbiamo spostati ieri sera. We moved them last night. The date beneath it, October 15th, 2024, yesterday. I felt my throat close. The client turned to look at me, and in the reflected light, I saw his expression. Not fear, curiosity, like he'd expected this. We should leave, I said. Just a few more photographs. Now. Something in my tone must have convinced him. We backed out of the chamber together. I locked the maintenance door behind us, checked it twice, 3 times. My hands were shaking. We didn't speak on the way up. When we reached the main level, the client thanked me, paid in cash, left his card in case I wanted to discuss what we'd found. I threw the card away that night. I reported the chamber to my supervisor the next morning, described the location, the arrangement, the message on the wall. He looked at me like I'd lost my mind, checked the records, checked the maps. There was no chamber at that depth. No room matching that description had ever been documented, but I know what I saw. I haven't been back to Votos, the third level, since. Haven't unsealed that maintenance door. Sometimes I think about going down there again, checking if the chamber is still there, if the skulls are still facing the entrance. But mostly I think about the dust patterns, about something moving thousands of skulls into perfect position within 48 hours, about a message dated yesterday in a chamber that's been sealed for decades, about how all those empty sockets looked like they were waiting for me specifically. I still lead tours. I still answer questions about Roman burial practices and architectural history, but I don't take private clients anymore. And when tourists ask if there are any levels below the main catacombs, I tell them no. I tell them what we show is everything there is to see. It's easier that way. Safer, because some rooms should stay sealed Some arrangements should stay undisturbed, and some questions should never be answered. The skulls know this already. I'm still learning. There are some numbers you learn to stop questioning, even when they don't make sense. My name is Marcus Delacroix, and I have worked as a tour lead at the Paris Catacombs for 17 years. I've guided thousands of visitors through 6 million skeletons, answered 10,000 questions about death and history, and learned that down here in the Empire of the Dead, patterns emerge that have no logical explanation. You accept them, you move on. You don't ask why, except I did ask why, and I wish I hadn't. The chamber in question is tucked away in the restricted tour section, about 40 meters past the main ossuary displays. We call it the counting room, though that name isn't official. Just something the guides started using maybe a decade ago, back when restoration crews first noticed the peculiarity. The skulls inside always number exactly 847. Always. It doesn't matter how many times the remains are reorganized for preservation work, how many times they're photographed, cataloged, or shifted during maintenance. 847 skulls. Never 846. Never 848. Exact. Precise. Unchanging. I noticed it during my 3rd year. I was helping with inventory documentation, a tedious process where we photograph and count remains for academic records. My colleague Laurent and I spent 6 hours in that chamber, counting twice to be certain. We reached an 847 both times. Seems like a lot, I said. Laurent shrugged. The number's been consistent since the 1880s. Check the old logbooks if you want. Same count every time. I did check. He was right. Every inventory going back 140 years recorded the same number, 847. I should have left it alone, but over the years, it started bothering me. The catacombs contain millions of bones, random arrangements, estimates, approximations. Nothing down here is exact, except that one room, that one perfect number. I began visiting the counting room between tours, just to look, just to see if maybe I'd miscounted, if maybe the number would change. It never did. Other guides noticed my fixation, made jokes about it, called me the counting room's guardian. You worried they'll multiply, Marcus? Laurent teased one afternoon. I laughed it off. But yes, in a way, I was worried. 3 months ago, we had major restoration work. A university team came in with laser scanning equipment and portable X-ray machines. They wanted detailed imaging of the bone arrangements for a research project on 18th century burial practices. The counting room was part of their study area. They removed every skull, cataloged each one individually, scanned them, photographed them, arranged them in temporary storage in a different section while they worked on the chamber's walls and shelving. I watched the whole process. They removed exactly 847 skulls. I counted along with them the symbols. Restoration took 11 days. When they returned the remains to the chamber, they arranged them in a new configuration, more stable, better preserved, more historically accurate, according to the lead researcher. I counted as they worked. 847 skulls going back in. The team finished on a Friday evening, locked the chamber, left their equipment for Monday's final documentation. I stayed late to finish some paperwork, then did my usual walkthrough before heading home. I stopped at the counting room, unlocked it, shined my flashlight across the newly arranged remains. 847 skulls stared back at me. Perfect, exact, unchanged. I should have felt satisfied. Instead, I felt uneasy. Something about the new arrangement bothered me. The way they were positioned, the angles, too deliberate, too perfect, like they'd been placed by something that understood symmetry better than humans do. That was a Friday. On Monday, the university team returned for final measurements. I was leading a morning tour when I heard shouting from the restricted section. Professional, controlled shouting, but shouting nonetheless. I found the team standing outside the counting room, staring at their tablets. Problem? I asked. The lead researcher looked at me. We scanned this chamber Friday before we left, documented every skull position, locked the door. No one's been inside since then. And the skulls have been rearranged. I stepped past him into the chamber. He was right. The configuration had changed, not dramatically, but enough. Angles shifted, positions altered. A few skulls that had been on lower shelves now sat higher. Others had moved laterally. Could someone have accessed the room over the weekend? The researcher asked. I checked the lock. Intact. No signs of tampering. I was here Friday night. Room was locked. I'm the only one with keys to this section over weekends. Then how? I don't know. We counted, together, methodically, double-checking each other's numbers, 847 skulls. The team left that afternoon, packed their equipment, thanked us for the access, never came back. I kept visiting the counting room, checking, counting. The number never changed, but the positions did. Subtle shifts, slight rotations, angles adjusting when no one was inside. I started documenting it, taking photographs, measuring distances between specific skulls. The changes were real, and they were consistent. Every 3 days, something moved them. My final shift at the catacombs was 2 weeks ago. I went down for one last count, one last check. The chamber was quiet, cold, the same 55 degrees it had always been. I counted slowly, carefully, touching each skull as I went. 846. I froze, recounted, checked every shelf, every corner, every shadow. 846 skulls. One was missing. I searched for an hour, checked the floor, the ceiling, the adjacent chambers. Nothing. The Bukusatus skull was simply gone. For the first time in over a century, the count had changed. I was about to leave when I noticed something wedged between two femurs on the bottom shelf. A piece of paper, old, yellowed, folded tight. I pulled it out, unfolded it with shaking hands. The handwriting was old-fashioned, careful, written in French. Ne vous arrêtez pas à 846. Don't stop at 846. No signature, no date, just that single sentence. I turned the paper over. On the back, in the same handwriting, Nous avons besoin de 847. Toujours. We need the 847. Always. I stood there for a long time, holding that note, staring at the shelves, at the 846 skulls that remained, at the empty space where the 847th should have been. Then I heard it. Footsteps behind me in the chamber on stone, slow, deliberate, coming closer. I didn't turn around, didn't look, just walked out, locked the door, left the note on the floor inside. I submitted my resignation the next morning, told them it was health reasons. Early retirement, they understood. 17 years is a long career in the catacombs. Laurent called me last week, said they'd done another inventory, asked if I wanted to know the count. I told him no, but he told me anyway. 847, the number was correct again. I don't know what they used to replace the missing skull. Don't want to know. Some mathematics are better left incomplete. Some counts are better left to those who understand them. I still dream about that chamber sometimes, about perfect numbers and careful arrangements, about something that counts more precisely than we ever could, about a note that knew I'd find it, about footsteps that had no source. The catacombs keep their secrets well. Some of them are just numbers, some of them are waiting. Some sounds you hear once and spend the rest of your life trying to forget. My name is Claire Hendricks, and I have worked as a docent at the underground vaults of Edinburgh, Scotland for 9 years. I lead tours through plague chambers, forgotten burial sites, and bricked over passages where the city's darkest history still breathes in the stone. I've heard rats in the walls, water dripping from centuries-old ceilings, and the wind whistling through cracks that shouldn't exist. But I've never heard anything like what came from Section 14B. The section itself isn't particularly remarkable. Mid-level vault space, about 6 meters below street level, mostly empty except for some Victorian-era infrastructure work and a bricked-over archway that leads nowhere. The brickwork dates to 1891, according to our records. Some kind of structural reinforcement after a partial collapse. Standard procedure for the time. We don't usually stop there during tours. Nothing to see, nothing to tell. Just another sealed passage in a city built on top of itself. Until the afternoon of October 3rd. I was leading a group of 8, mostly couples, one solo traveler from Canada. Standard late afternoon tour. We just finished discussing the plague victims buried in the lower sections when I heard it. Tapping, rhythmic, deliberate, metal on stone, tap, 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 pause, tap, tap, tap. I stopped mid-sentence. Everyone went quiet. The sound continued, coming from section 14B, behind the bricked archway, clear enough that all 8 tourists heard it too. Is that part of the tour? The Canadian asked. No, I said quietly. It's not. We stood there listening. The tapping continued for maybe 30 seconds, then stopped. Silence. The kind of silence that feels thick, expectant. Probably maintenance work, I said, though I knew there was no maintenance scheduled. No one worked in the sealed sections. No one had reason to. I finished the tour quickly, got the group back to street level, smiled, thanked them, watched them leave. Then I went straight to my supervisor's office. Did we have any work scheduled in 14B today? He looked up from his computer. 14B, That's sealed. Has been for over a century. Why? I told him about the tapping. He frowned, made some calls, checked schedules, no maintenance, no contractors, no work of any kind in that section. Probably old pipes, he said. Thermal expansion. Happens sometimes. I nodded, accepted the explanation because it was easier than admitting I didn't believe it, but I kept hearing it during tours. Always in section 14B, always the same rhythm. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap, tap. Never loud enough to be alarming, just persistent, present, there. After 2 weeks, I stopped mentioning it. Tourists would ask about the sound, and I'd blame the building, old structure, active city above us, normal acoustic anomalies. They accepted it, but it bothered me. The precision bothered me. The consistency, like someone was trying to communicate, like someone was counting. 3 days ago, maintenance finally agreed to investigate. They unsealed the archway on a Tuesday morning. I wasn't scheduled to be there, but I came in early specifically to watch. 2 workers with crowbars and hammers. They removed the bricks carefully, documenting everything for historical preservation. The archway opened into a small chamber, maybe 3 meters by 4. Stone walls, dirt floor, empty except for some timber debris from the original collapse and a few broken bottles. Victorian trash, most likely. Nothing unusual, nothing except the mourning locket. It was sitting in the center of the floor, just sitting there. Brass, ornate, the kind women wore in the 1800s to hold photographs or locks of hair from deceased loved ones. It looked almost new, clean, polished. One of the workers picked it up, opened it. Inside was a small daguerreotype photograph. A young woman in Victorian dress. Pretty, serious expression, the kind of formal portrait people took in the mid 1800s. He showed it to me. Think we should log this? I took the locket, turned it over. On the back, engraved in elegant script, Elizabeth Mary Whitmore, 1847 to 1891, my grandmother's maiden name. Whitmore, my hands went cold. I stared at the engraving, read it 3 times. 4, my grandmother's family came from Edinburgh. She'd mentioned it once or twice, but I'd never researched it, never traced the genealogy, never had reason to. You all right? The worker asked. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. I took the locket home that night. Couldn't help myself. Spent 4 hours on ancestry websites, census records, birth certificates, death registries. Elizabeth Mary Whitmore, born Edinburgh 1847, died 1891, buried in Greyfriars Kirkyard, unmarried, no children, my great-great-great aunt, 3rd generation back on my grandmother's side. The chamber was sealed the same year she died. I sat at my kitchen table until 3 in the morning, holding that locket, staring at the photograph. The woman looked nothing like me. Different face shape, different eyes. But something in her expression felt familiar, like looking at a stranger who somehow knows you. I brought the locket back the next day, logged it properly, put it in storage, tried to forget about it, but I can't, because now, when I walk past section 14B, I hear something different. Not tapping, whispering, faint, just at the edge of hearing. A woman's voice, I can't make out words, just the cadence, the rhythm, like someone speaking urgently, like someone trying to warn me. I've tried recording it. Nothing shows up on audio, just static, just normal background noise. But I hear it, clear as daylight, every time I pass that archway. The other docents don't hear anything. I've asked, casually, carefully. They just hear the building settling, water in pipes, normal vault acoustics. Last night, I stayed late, stood in front of the bricked over archway. They've since resealed, listened. The whispering was clearer, close, like someone standing just on the other side of those bricks. I could almost make out words, almost understand. Then I heard my name, Claire, soft, gentle, certain. I left, locked up, went home. Called in sick this morning. I don't know what's in that chamber. Don't know why Elizabeth Whitmore's locket was sitting on the floor of a room that's been sealed since 1891. Don't know why she's calling my name, but I know one thing. The chamber was empty when they unsealed it. The workers confirmed it. I saw it myself. Nothing there except old debris and that locket. So why, when I looked at the photographs maintenance took before resealing it, can I see footprints? Fresh footprints in the dirt floor. Small, Victorian-style boot prints, leading from the back wall to the center of the room, to exactly where the locket was found. I've put in for a transfer, different tour route, different sections, anything but the vaults. My supervisor asked why. I told him I needed a change of scenery. He approved it. I start next week, but I still have the locket. Took it from storage. I know I shouldn't have, but it felt wrong to leave it there. Wrong to abandon it. Sometimes I open it, look at Elizabeth's photograph, try to see family resemblance, try to understand. Mostly, I just listen, because late at night, when my flat is quiet, I hear tapping. Tap, tap, tap. Pause, tap, tap, tap. Coming from the locket, from inside the photograph, like someone counting the years between us, like someone waiting for the right moment to speak. I've learned that some recordings should be deleted immediately, before you have time to listen twice. My name is Tomas Ruiz, and I have worked as a tour guide at the Capuchin Catacombs in Palermo, Sicily, for 14 years. I've walked past 8,000 mummified bodies countless times, explained preservation techniques to thousands of visitors, and recorded hundreds of hours of audio for training materials and personal reference. I thought I understood every sound these chambers could make. The creaking wood of old display cases, the whisper of air through ventilation shafts, the shuffle of tourist feet on ancient stone. But I'd never heard a voice that didn't belong to anyone living. The fourth niche is located in the professionals' corridor, about halfway through the main tour route. It contains 6 mummified bodies from the 1800s. Lawyers, doctors, buried in their finest clothes, hands folded, expressions frozen in that peculiar, peaceful but disturbing way that only long dead faces can achieve. Nothing unusual about them. Nothing that stands out, just another stop on the tour where I explain preservation methods and answer questions about how the bodies were prepared. I used to bring every group past that niche, S2. It started 4 months ago. I was developing a new audio guide for our website, something visitors could listen to on their phones while they walked through. Better production value than our old recordings. More professional, more detailed. I recorded myself describing each section. Historical context, preservation techniques, notable individuals, standard tour guide material. The fourth niche was scheduled for recording on a Thursday afternoon in late June. I stood in front of the display, hit record on my phone, spoke clearly, described the 6 bodies, explained their backgrounds, mentioned the unique preservation of their clothing. Everything went smoothly. I recorded for maybe 4 minutes, then moved on to the next section. That evening, I listened to the playback at home. Quality check, making sure the audio was clean, no background noise, no echoes that would make it hard to understand. The fourth niche recording sounded perfect. My voice shipped through clearly. Good pacing, good tone, exactly what I wanted. Except there was another voice underneath mine. Faint, almost imperceptible, like someone whispering just below the threshold of normal hearing. I had to turn the volume up completely to make it out. A woman's voice, speaking Italian, saying names. Giovanni Ferrara, Paolo Messina, Lucia Torrente. I stopped the playback, rewound, listened again, the same names, same voice, same whispered cadence underneath my own narration. I checked the recording file. No corruption, no digital artifacts, just clean audio with that impossible second voice woven into it. I told myself it was interference, radio frequency, someone's phone, some kind of audio bleed from another device. I deleted the file, recorded the section again the next day. Same result. I could hear myself describing the preservation techniques, and underneath, that whisper, different names this time. Antonio Verde, Sofia Benedetti, Marco De Luca. I stopped bringing tours past the fourth niche, rerouted everyone through the adjacent corridor, made up an excuse about restoration work. No one questioned it. We have enough to see in the catacombs. One niche doesn't matter. But I kept thinking about those names, about why they'd be whispered, about what it meant. So I researched them. Giovanni Ferrara died in Palermo, July 2024, 63 years old. Heart attack. Paolo Messina died in Palermo, July 2024, 41 years old. Car accident. Both deaths occurred within a week of my first recording. I felt something cold settle in my chest. I checked the second set of names, the ones from my second recording. Antonio Verde died in Palermo, August 2024, 78. 78 years old. Stroke. Sofia Benedetti died in Palermo, August 2024, 37 years old. Workplace accident. Marco De Luca died in Palermo, August 2024, 59 years old. Cancer, all dead within 3 weeks of that second recording. I stopped recording entirely after that. Deleted everything. Told my supervisor the audio guide project needed to be postponed. He was annoyed, but agreed I should have left it alone. But 2 weeks ago, a colleague asked me to record a safety announcement for our new radio system. Emergency protocols, fire exits, standard workplace material. I agreed because it seemed harmless, because it had nothing to do with the fourth niche. I recorded it in the administrative office, Nowhere near the catacombs, nowhere near the bodies, just a simple message about emergency procedures. When I played it back, I heard the whisper again. Teresa Marino, Giuseppe Romano. I deleted the file immediately. Didn't check the names, didn't research them, just deleted it and tried to forget. But I couldn't. 3 days later, I saw the news. Teresa Marino, 44 years old, died in a house fire in Palermo. Giuseppe Romano, 61 years old, fatal heart attack while shopping. Both dead within 72 hours of my recording. I haven't recorded anything since. Not for work, not for personal use. I don't even leave voicemails anymore. I'm terrified of what I might hear underneath my own voice. Yesterday, my supervisor asked me to do one final recording, just a brief welcome message for visitors. 30 seconds, that's all. I told him no, refused outright. He was confused, asked why. I couldn't explain, couldn't tell him about the whispers, about the names, about the deaths. He's considering disciplinary action. I don't care. Because this morning I woke up and checked my phone, found a voice message from an unknown number, just static, white noise, nothing else. But when I turned the volume all the way up, I heard it, that whisper, that same voice, speaking clearly now, deliberately. Tomas Ruiz. My name, just my name. I deleted the message, deleted everything, turned my phone off, sat in my kitchen, shaking for an hour. I don't know what happens next, don't know if hearing your own name is a warning or a prediction, don't know if I'm supposed to do something to prevent it, or if it's already decided. I only know one thing for certain. I'm not going back to the fourth niche, not ever, not for any reason, because last night I had a dream. I was standing in front of those 6 mummified bodies. They were watching me, all 6 of them, their heads turned, their eyes opened, and they whispered, all of them, together, in perfect unison. They whispered my name, and underneath their voices, I heard dates, specific dates, all of them in December, all of them this year. I woke up at 4 in the morning, wrote my resignation letter. I'll submit it today. Maybe leaving will help. Maybe distance matters. Maybe if I'm far enough away from those bodies, from that niche, from whatever is speaking through my recordings, maybe then I'll be safe. Or maybe the voice follows. Maybe it's already in every recording I've ever made, every digital file, every saved message, just waiting for the right moment to be heard. I don't know, but I know I won't record again. And I know I'll never stop listening, because that's the worst part. Not the whispers themselves, but knowing they're always there, just underneath the surface, waiting to speak your name. There are parts of every cemetery that don't appear in any official record, and most of us learn not to ask why. My name is Vera Lindholm, and I have worked as an assistant tour guide at the Prague Bone Church in Sedlec, Czech Republic, for 6 years. The ossuary here contains the skeletal remains of between 40,000 and 70,000 people, most of them victims of the Black Death and the Hussite Wars. We arrange tours carefully. We answer questions respectfully. We maintain the dignity of the dead even when they've been fashioned into chandeliers and coat of arms displays. But we don't talk about the unnamed row. I found it during my second month. I was cataloging remains for a restoration project, working in the lower chapel section where tourists rarely go. The project required us to document every ossuary niche, every bone arrangement, every structural element. Most niches have some identification: plague victim, war casualty, monastic burial, dates, origins, some kind of record linking the bones to history. But in the northwest corner, tucked behind a support pillar, I found a row of infant remains with nothing. No plaques, no dates, no markers. Just 12 tiny skulls arranged on a stone shelf, each no larger than my fist. I took notes, photographed them, added them to my documentation, mentioned them to my supervisor during our weekly meeting. He looked at me strangely. What row? I showed him the photographs, the location coordinates, the measurements. He frowned, checked the official records, checked the historical archives, checked restoration logs going back to the 1870s, when the bone arrangements were first created. Nothing, no mention of infant remains in that section. No record of those 12 skulls. Maybe they were added during unofficial restoration work, he said. Happens sometimes. People move things. We'll log them properly now. He seemed satisfied with that explanation. I wasn't, but I didn't argue. I should have, because 2 weeks later, during an evening tour, something happened that I still don't understand. I was leading a group of 15. Mix of tourists and academic visitors, standard route through the main chapel and lower sections. We'd just finished discussing the bone chandelier when a woman at the back of the group raised her hand. "Excuse me," she said, British accent, middle-aged, sensible shoes, and a practical rain jacket. "Could you show us where they put the unnamed ones?" I stopped. "I'm sorry." "The unnamed children, the row in the northwest corner. I'd like to see them." The rest of the group turned to look at her, then at me. I felt my throat tighten. "I don't think that's part of the standard tour," I said carefully. "I know, but I'd still like to see them." She smiled, pleasant, patient, like she had all the time in the world. I should have said no, should have explained that section wasn't accessible, should have redirected the tour. Instead, I found myself nodding, aiding. The group toward the northwest corner, toward the pillar, toward the unnamed row. They were still there. 12 tiny skulls, arranged exactly as I'd found them. The woman walked up to the shelf, stood very close, looked at each skull individually, like she was counting, like she was checking attendance. "All here," she said softly. "Good." One of the other tourists spoke up. "Are these plague victims?" "No," the woman said before I could answer. "They were unwanted, abandoned. They have no names because no one ever gave them any." "How do you know that?" I asked. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were kind, sad, the color of old stone. "Because I've been waiting here since 1904, she said. The temperature in the chapel dropped. I felt it. Everyone felt it. The kind of cold that comes from inside your bones. "Waiting for what?" someone whispered. "For someone to count them, to see them, to know they're here." She looked back at the skulls. "It's been 120 years. You're the first person who's documented them." I couldn't speak, couldn't move. The woman reached out and touched the smallest skull, just a gentle touch, like a mother checking on a sleeping child. "Thank you," she said to me, for writing them down, for making them real. Then she walked past me, past the group, toward the exit. I should have followed her, should have asked questions, should have done something, but I was frozen. We all were. By the time I could move again, she was gone, vanished into the afternoon crowds. I checked the tour registration later. 15 people signed in, 15 names on the list. But when I counted the group after she left, there were only 14. No one remembered signing in with her. No one remembered her joining the tour, but everyone remembered her standing at that shelf. Everyone remembered what she said. I've been waiting here since 1904. I researched it that night, dug through historical records, church archives, municipal documents, looking for something, anything. I found a brief notation in a diocesan record from February 1904. A woman named Anna Kovar had been arrested for abandoning her newborn child near the ossuary. The child died within hours. Anna died in prison 6 weeks later. Tuberculosis. There was a photograph attached to the record. Grainy, black and white, poor quality, but I recognized her face. The same woman from the tour, the same sad eyes, the same patient smile. I haven't gone back to the unnamed row since, haven't photographed it again, haven't mentioned it to tourists. When people ask about unmarked remains, I redirect them to other sections, give them different information. But sometimes, during evening tours, I feel someone watching me. Someone standing just at the edge of the group. Someone who smiles when I avoid the northwest corner. Someone who's grateful. Someone who's been waiting. And sometimes, late at night when I'm closing up, I hear something from that corner. Not crying, not voices, just a gentle sound. Like someone humming a lullaby. Like a mother singing her children to sleep. I've learned not to investigate, not to check. Some sounds are meant to comfort the living. Some are meant for the dead alone. The unnamed row is still there, still unrecorded in official documents, still invisible to everyone except those who go looking for it. I keep meaning to catalog it properly, to give those 12 children some kind of official recognition, to make them real in the records. But I don't, because I think that's not what they need, not what she needs. They just needed someone to see them, to acknowledge they existed, to know they're not forgotten. I did that, and maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all any of us are really asking for. To be seen, to be counted, to be remembered, even if we have no names. Even if we're just small skulls on a stone shelf in a forgotten corner of a church made of bones. Even if we've been waiting for 120 years. We just want someone to know we were here, that we mattered, that we were real. I understand that now. I think Anna understands that I understand. And I think that's why she's still here, still watching, still waiting, still grateful. There are some parts of the catacombs where the laws of physics seem negotiable and you learn to work around them. My name is Anton Volkov, and I have worked as lead tour guide at the Odessa catacombs in Ukraine for 22 years. I've walked over 2,000 kilometers of underground tunnels, navigated passages that predate modern mapping, and learned to read the subtle shifts in air pressure that tell you when a section is unstable. The catacombs maintain a consistent 55 degrees Fahrenheit year round. Humidity stays around 70%. Temperature regulation is precise, predictable, reliable, except in one corner of the lower network. The humid corner, as we call it among the guides, sits approximately 3 kilometers from the main entrance. It's part of an older mining section, converted to storage during World War II, now mostly empty except for some collapsed framework and water stained walls. Nothing special, nothing that would draw attention, except it's always warm. Not hot, not uncomfortable, just wrong. The kind of warmth that doesn't belong in underground stone, that hasn't seen sunlight in over a century. 78 degrees consistently, sometimes 80, and the humidity climbs to 95%. Like standing in a greenhouse, like breathing through wet cloth. I noticed it during my first month. I was doing route familiarization training with the senior guide at the time, Dimitri. We were mapping alternative passages in case of emergency evacuations. Standard procedure, we turned into the humid corner and I immediately felt the temperature change. Why is it so warm here? I asked. Dimitri didn't slow down. No one knows. Been like this since the 1970s, maybe longer, probably a thermal vent. Underground spring, something geological. Has anyone investigated? Twice, 1983 and 2006. Both times they found nothing. No heat source, no water, no explanation, just warmth. He led me through quickly. We didn't stop, didn't linger. I remember thinking it was strange, but not alarming. The catacombs have lots of strange things. You accept them, you adapt. I forgot about the humid corner for years, focused on the main tour routes, the popular sections, the historically significant passages. The warm corner was off the standard path. No reason to visit. Until 5 years ago. I was leading a specialized tour, academic group, geologists from Kiev. They wanted to see unusual formations, structural anomalies, anything that might provide research material. I mentioned the humid corner. They insisted on seeing it. We walked the 3 kilometers. The group was excited, taking readings, measuring humidity, recording temperatures. When we reached the corner, their instruments confirmed what I already knew: 79 degrees, 94% humidity, warm, wet, wrong. But what I hadn't noticed before, what I'd never stayed long enough to see, was the condensation. It formed on the walls and patterns. Not random, not the usual water beads you'd expect from humidity. These were deliberate, linear, almost like writing. One of the geologists pointed it out. Look at that. The condensation is forming words. I stepped closer, shined my light directly on the wall. He was right. The water droplets were arranging themselves into Cyrillic letters, slowly, like watching invisible fingers write on cold glass. Vsește dichiu, still breathing, I felt my chest tighten. The geologists were fascinated, started photographing, taking samples of the wall, discussing mineral content and water composition, scientific explanations, rational theories. But I was watching the words, watching them form, watching the condensation move in ways condensation shouldn't move. The letters stayed visible for maybe 90 seconds. Then they dripped, dissolved, reformed into different words. Chamuti Peshov, why did you leave? One of the geologists touched the wall. His hand came away wet. He smelled his fingers. Just water, normal condensation, but the pattern formation is remarkable. Some kind of air current manipulation or temperature differential creating, Povernisa, come back. I stopped listening to his theories, stopped paying attention to the measurements, just watched the wall, watched the words appear and disappear, watched something impossible happen in a way that felt intentional, purposeful, aware. We left after 20 minutes. The geologists took their samples, promised to send me their findings. I never heard from them again, but I started visiting the humid corner regularly, alone, between tours, during maintenance checks, whenever I had time. The words continued, different messages, different handwriting, if condensation can have handwriting, sometimes Cyrillic, sometimes German, once in French, all of them saying similar things. I'm here. Don't forget. Still waiting. Why won't you answer? I documented everything, photographed the messages, tried to record video. Nothing ever showed up on camera. Just wet walls. Just normal condensation. But I could see them, clear as daylight, letter by letter, word by word. I researched the history of that section, found records from World War II. The humid corner had been used as a shelter during the siege of Odessa. Hundreds of people lived down there for months. Many died. Disease, starvation, cave-ins. The bodies were buried in adjacent tunnels, unmarked graves, forgotten names. The warmth made sense then. Not scientific sense, but human sense. Like body heat that never faded. Like the memory of crowded spaces and desperate breathing. Like something that couldn't let go. 3 weeks ago, I brought a new trainee through that section, young woman named Katerina, bright, enthusiastic, good with tourists. I wanted to see if she'd notice the temperature. She did, immediately. Why is it so warm here? She asked. Unknown thermal source, I said. The official answer. We walked through the corner. I watched the walls, watched for condensation, for words, for messages. Nothing appeared. We continued the route, finished the writing. I felt relieved. Maybe it had stopped. Maybe whatever needed to say something had finally been heard. But that night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about the humid corner, about the silence, about the absence of words. I went back the next morning, alone, before my shift started. The corner was still warm, still humid. I stood there for 10 minutes, waiting, watching. Then the condensation began. Different this time, faster, more urgent. The letters formed quickly, deliberately. Anton, my name, my full name in Cyrillic. I stepped back, watched more words form beneath it. Ti yedini chtobachet. You're the only one who sees. Nezalashai nas. Don't leave us. I haven't been back since. Haven't walked that route. Haven't assigned tours through that section. When trainees ask about alternative passages, I redirect them, show them different routes, safer routes, routes where condensation behaves normally. But I think about it constantly, about being seen, about being the only one, about what it means to be singled out by something that exists in the space between water vapor and stone. My supervisor asked me yesterday why I've been avoiding the lower sections. I told him maintenance concerns, structural integrity. He accepted it. But the truth is simpler. I'm afraid of of what else the walls might write. I'm afraid of seeing my name again. I'm afraid of the question that will eventually come. The question I already know is forming in that warm, wet corner, letter by letter, word by word, in condensation that moves with purpose. Kolida Prideshtadomu, when are you coming home? Because I think I know what the humid corner really is. Not a thermal vent, not an underground spring, not a geological anomaly. It's a waiting room, and something there knows my name and thinks I belong with them. In the warmth, in the humidity, in the space where the dead still breathe, still waiting, still writing messages on stone walls, still asking why I left, still asking when I'll return. Some doors lock from the inside, and you learn not to ask who's holding the key. My name is Isla McGregor, and I have worked as a guide at the St. Michan's Church Crypt in Dublin, Ireland for 13 years. I lock the restricted ossuary every evening at 6 o'clock sharp, check the bolt, test the handle, confirm the security. It's part of my closing routine. Simple, mechanical, reliable, or it was, until the ossuary started unlocking itself. The restricted section contains remains from the 17th century, mostly anonymous burials, people whose names were lost to time or never recorded in the first place. We keep it locked because the preservation is delicate and the zones are fragile. Only researchers with special permits get access. Everyone else sees the main crypt. I've never had problems with the lock. Heavy iron bolt, original hardware from 1793. Solid, simple. You slide it closed and it stays closed until it doesn't. The first time happened in September. I locked up at 6 o'clock like always. Did my final walkthrough, checked at all the doors, set the alarm, left for the evening. The next morning, I arrived at 6:47. The alarm was still active. No signs of break-in, no disturbance, everything normal, except the ossuary door was open, not just unlocked, open, standing wide. The iron bolt pulled back completely, like someone had walked through and left it that way. I checked the security footage. Our system is basic but functional. Single camera covering the main crypt entrance. The footage showed me locking the door at 6:03 the previous evening. Showed the crypt empty all night. No movement, no visitors, no one entering or leaving. Then, at 6:47 that morning, the footage showed me arriving and finding the door open. But it never showed the door opening. One frame it was closed. Next frame it was open. No transition, no movement. Just a sudden change between one moment and the next. I reported it to the church administrator. He checked the lock, checked the bolt, found nothing wrong, suggested I hadn't secured it properly. I didn't argue. Maybe I hadn't. Maybe I'd been distracted. Maybe I'd made a mistake. I locked it more carefully that evening, double-checked, triple-checked, made absolutely certain the bolt was fully engaged. The next morning, it was open again. Same situation, same security footage, same impossible transition from closed to open with no visible cause. This time, I noticed something else. The bones inside had been rearranged, not dramatically, not obviously, but enough. Skulls that had been facing forward now faced left. Femurs that had been parallel now crossed. Small adjustments, precise movements, like someone had spent the night carefully repositioning everything. I took photographs, documented the changes, locked the door again that evening with even more care, stayed an extra 30 minutes to make absolutely certain it was secure. Third morning, open again, more rearrangements. This time, the bones formed a pattern, a spiral starting from the center of the room and moving outward. Deliberate, intentional, mathematical. I stopped reporting it, stopped trying to explain, just started photographing the arrangements each morning before I reset them, documenting what was happening, building a record. The patterns became more complex, more elaborate. Spirals became labyrinths, labyrinths became mandalas, each arrangement more intricate than the last, like someone was learning, practicing, getting better. This continued for 11 days. On the 12th morning, I found something different. The bones were back in their original positions. No spiral, no pattern, just the standard arrangement we'd maintained for decades. Everything exactly where it should be. But I was in the security footage, standing in the center of the ossuary, facing the camera. At 2:37 that morning, I watched the footage 5 times, 6, 7, trying to understand, trying to make sense of it. The figure in the footage was definitely me. Same height, same build, same uniform, same face. It stood perfectly still for 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Then it turned around, began rearranging the bones, moving systematically, efficiently, like it had done this before, like it knew exactly what pattern to create. At 3:08, it finished, walked to the door, pulled back the bolt, stepped through. The door remained open, but I wasn't there. I was home, asleep, alone in my flat 6 kilometers away. I called in sick that day, stayed home, didn't know what else to do, didn't know how to explain what I'd seen, didn't know if I was losing my mind or if something worse was happening. The next day, I came back, had to, needed to know. The ossuary was open. The bones were arranged in a pattern I didn't recognize. Abstract, chaotic, nothing like the previous careful spirals. I checked the footage. This time there were 2 of me, both standing in the ossuary, both moving bones, both working together to create the pattern. One started from the left side, one darted from the right. They met in the middle, paused, looked at each other, then they both turned and looked at the camera, directly at the camera. For 15 seconds, they stared, then they went back to work. I should have quit that day, should have walked out, should have never come back, but I didn't, because I needed to understand, needed to know what was happening, needed to know why it looked like me, why it moved like me, why it knew how to arrange bones and patterns I'd never seen before. I kept watching the footage every morning, documenting how many appeared, how they moved, what patterns they created. By the 15th day, there were 7 of me, all working together, all moving in perfect synchronization, all creating elaborate bone arrangements that filled the entire ossuary floor. By the 20th day, there were 12. Yesterday morning, I counted 23. The ossuary can't hold that many people. It's not physically possible. The space is maybe 4 meters by 5. But somehow, in the footage, 23 versions of me moved through that room without colliding, without interfering with each other, like they occupied slightly different dimensions of the same space. This morning, I didn't check the footage first. I went straight to the ossuary. The door was open like always. I stepped inside. The bones were gone, all of them. The shelves were empty. The floor was bare. Every skull, every femur, every vertebra, gone, removed, taken somewhere I couldn't see. But there were footprints, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all my shoe size, all my tread pattern, overlapping, crisscrossing, covering every surface like an army of me had marched through, like they'd been here for hours, days, years. I backed out slowly, closed the door, locked it. I haven't checked the security footage yet. Don't want to. Don't want to know how many there are now. Don't want to see myself standing in that empty room, staring at the camera, waiting, but I know what I'll find when I finally look. I'll find myself. Hundreds of me, thousands maybe, all standing in the ossuary, all perfectly still, all facing the camera, all waiting for me to join them, because I think I understand now. The ossuary wasn't opening from the inside. It was opening to let me in, to let all the versions of me in, the ones that exist in moments I don't remember, in hours I can't account for, in spaces between waking and sleeping, where something else takes my shape and walks through locked doors and arranges bones in patterns that mean something I don't understand yet. The door is open. It's always open now. And tonight, when I lock it at 6 o'clock, I think I'll finally know why. Because tonight, I think I'll be on both sides of the door, locking it and unlocking it at the same time, in the same moment, forever. Some stories write themselves forward in time, and you don't realize you're reading your own until it's too late. My name is Mateo Silva, and I have worked as the historian guide at the Recoleta Cemetery in Buenos Aires, Argentina for 9 years. I catalog the dead, document their lives, preserve their stories. The cemetery holds over 4,800 vaults and mausoleums, each one a chapter in the city's history. My job is to make sure those chapters don't fade, that the names stay attached to the bones. That memory persists beyond marble and stone. I take the work seriously, obsessively, some might say. Every vault gets documented, every inscription gets photographed, every family history gets researched and recorded. I maintain the archives, keep them current, keep them accurate. The archives are kept in a climate-controlled room beneath the cemetery office. Filing cabinets full of paper records, leather-bound journals from previous historians, boxes of photographs dating back to the 1800s. Everything organized by plot number and family name, everything cross-referenced, everything in its place. Plot 9 has always been problematic. The vault itself is unremarkable. Stone construction, 1867. The Mendoza family. Wealthy landowners, 7 burials between 1869 and 1923. After that, the line died out. No living relatives, no one to maintain the tomb. It fell into disrepair, became one of dozens of forgotten monuments, slowly crumbling in the southern section. But the archive for Plot 9 was extensive, unusually so, 3 complete leather journals dedicated to this single family. More documentation than families twice their size, more detail than seemed necessary. I'd noticed it before, but never investigated. Too many other vaults to catalog, too many other families to research. Plot 9 could wait. Until last month, when I needed space for new acquisitions and decided to consolidate the Plot 9 materials. I pulled all three journals, heavy, old, beautifully bound in dark leather with brass clasps. The kind of books that cost serious money, the kind historians cherish. The first journal started in 1867, written by someone named Eduardo Ramirez, previous cemetery historian. He documented the Mendoza family's first burial in precise detail: name, date, cause of death, family connections, standard information, professional, thorough. But toward the end of the first journal, around 1892, the entries changed, became more personal, more reflective. I find myself drawn to Plot 9 more than is professionally warranted. Something about the Mendoza family vault calls to me. I have begun visiting daily, though I cannot articulate why. I kept reading. The second journal, picked up in 1893. Different handwriting, different author. Someone named Gabriela Torres. She documented her own growing obsession with Plot 9. The same language, the same inexplicable attraction. She wrote about spending hours at the vault, photographing it, sketching it, trying to understand why this particular family held such fascination. Her final entry was dated March 1907. I have decided to research the Mendoza line more thoroughly. There must be something I'm missing, something that explains this compulsion. I will begin tomorrow. The entry ended there. No follow-up, no conclusion, just an abrupt stop. The third journal was written by someone named Diego Alvarez. He started documenting Plot 9 in 1908. Picked up exactly where Gabriela left off. Same obsession, same compulsion, same inability to explain why this vault mattered so much. He wrote for 6 years. His entries became increasingly desperate, increasingly convinced that Plot 9 held some secret, some answer to a question he couldn't properly formulate. His final entry was dated August 1914. Tomorrow I will enter the vault. I have secured permission from the Archdiocese. I must see what's inside. I must understand nothing after that. I sat in the archive room for a long time, holding those journals, thinking about 3 historians spanning 47 years, all obsessed with the same vault, all stopping their documentation abruptly, all disappearing from the records. I researched their names, found nothing. No death certificates, no transfer records, no mentions in contemporary cemetery documents. They simply stopped existing in the historical record, all of them, right after their final entries about Plot 9. I should have stopped there, should have put the journals back, should have walked away. Instead, I went to Plot 9. The vault was locked, always had been, no key in the current records. I'd passed it hundreds of times during tours, never thought to look closely. But standing in front of it now, I felt it. The same thing Eduardo and Gabriela and Diego must have felt. The pull, the compulsion, the certainty that this vault held something important. Something meant specifically for me. I returned to the archives, started documenting Plot 9 myself, photographing the journals, researching the Mendoza family, looking for connections, looking for explanations. I found a fourth journal, smaller, hidden behind the filing cabinets, no name on the cover. Inside, a single entry dated December 1924. To whoever finds this, stop, walk away. Do not investigate Plot 9. Do not open the vault. Do not add your name to this chain. The Mendozas are waiting. They have been waiting since 1867. They collect historians. They collect those who seek answers. Do not give them another. No signature, no context. Just that warning. I should have listened, but I kept researching, kept documenting, kept photographing. I couldn't stop. Didn't want to stop. Plot 9 had become everything, the only vault that mattered, the only story worth preserving. 3 days ago, I found the oldest journal, buried at the bottom of a box marked Miscellaneous, 1860s, leather bound, brass clasp, identical to the others. Written in 1867 by a historian named Francisco Mendoza, the same family in the vault. The first entry described his new position as cemetery historian, his excitement about documenting the city's dead, his commitment to preserving their stories. Then he described the death of his brother, the first burial in what would become Plot 9. He wrote about grief, about loss, about the impossibility of letting go, about wanting to preserve his brother's memory so completely that death became irrelevant. The entries became stranger, more desperate. He wrote about finding a way to ensure memory persists, to ensure the dead are never forgotten, to ensure historians keep coming, keep documenting, keep adding their own stories to the archive. The final entry was dated June 1867. I have completed the ritual. The vault is prepared. Future historians will come. They will document Plot 9. They will add their journals to the collection. They will join us in preservation. Memory will persist. We will persist. Forever documented, forever remembered, forever alive in the pages of those who seek to understand us. The historian who finds this journal will be the next. Below that, a list of names: Eduardo Ramirez, Gabriela Torres, Diego Alvarez, 5 others I didn't recognize. And at the bottom, in fresh ink, in handwriting I recognized because it was my own, Mateo Silva, 2024. I dropped the journal, backed away from it, stared at my name written in my handwriting in a book that was over 150 years old. But I knew, even as I stared, that I had written it, would write it, was writing it now in some moment that existed outside normal time. I'm writing this in my own journal now, documenting Plot 9, adding to the archive, doing exactly what Francisco Mendoza knew I would do, what Eduardo and Gabriela and Diego did, what the 9 others before me did. I can't stop, don't want to stop. This is my story now, my contribution to the preservation, my place in the eternal documentation of Plot 9. Tomorrow I will enter the vault. I have secured permission from the Archdiocese. I must see what's inside. I must understand. I know what I'll find. Know it with absolute certainty. I'll find 9 historians, perfectly preserved, still cataloging, still documenting, still adding to journals that never end. And I'll join them, and we'll wait together for the next one to find our journals and add their name to the list and continue the work of preservation forever, because that's what historians do. We preserve, we document, we remember, and Plot 9 will make sure we're never forgotten. Some voices return before they leave, and you learn that time doesn't flow the same way underground. My name is Leah Friedman, and I have worked as senior tour guide at the Weliczka Salt Mine in Krakow, Poland for 16 years. The mine contains 300 kilometers of tunnels carved into rock salt over 7 centuries, chambers the size of cathedrals, chapels with chandeliers made entirely of salt crystals, lakes 100 meters below the surface that reflect light like mirrors, and one passage where sound doesn't behave the way it should. We call it the Echo Passage. Official name is Corridor 7C, 43 meters long, 2 meters wide. Unremarkable except for its acoustic properties. Every sound echoes, normal, expected. Salt caverns have interesting acoustics. Nothing unusual there, except in Corridor 7C, the echo comes back before you finish speaking. I discovered it during my second year. I was practicing my tour speech in the empty corridor, rehearsing facts about salt extraction methods. Standard information. I started a sentence about 17th century mining techniques and heard my own voice finishing it. I stopped mid-word. The echo continued, completed my sentence exactly as I would have finished it, word for word, inflection for inflection, perfect. I tested it again, started saying, the miners used wooden supports the echo interrupted, to prevent collapse and maintain tunnel integrity. Exactly what I was going to say, exactly how I was going to say it. I thought I was hearing delayed playback. Maybe someone had recorded my practices. Maybe the corridor had some kind of speaker system. But no, the corridor was empty. No equipment, no electronics, just salt and stone, and my voice coming back wrong. I reported it to the mine supervisor. He laughed, said I was hearing things, said acoustic properties can be strange, said the mine plays tricks on everyone eventually, but I kept testing it, kept using the corridor during off hours, kept speaking and listening to my voice return before I finished. The echo knew things I hadn't said yet. If I started a sentence about mine history, it would finish with facts I'd planned to mention. If I began describing a chamber layout, it would complete the description perfectly, like it was reading my mind, like it knew exactly what words would come next. I started bringing other guides to witness it. Most heard nothing unusual. Normal echoes, normal delays, normal acoustic behavior. But a few heard what I heard, completions, predictions, sentences finishing themselves before we finished them. One guide, Piotr, got so disturbed he refused to work routes that included Corridor 7C. He told me the echo knew things about him, personal things. Private thoughts. He started a sentence about his daughter, and the echo finished it with information he'd never spoken aloud. Her middle name, her birthday, details no one should know. I should have stopped using the corridor, should have closed it to tours, should have reported it as a safety concern. But I was fascinated, obsessed maybe. I wanted to understand how it worked, why it worked, what it meant. So I started experimenting, faking sentences I'd never thought before, random combinations of words, nonsense phrases, trying to confuse it, trying to say something unpredictable. It completed them anyway, every single time, perfectly, like the words were already decided, like the future was fixed and the echo was just reporting what I would inevitably say. 6 months ago, I tried something different. I brought a recording device, digital, high quality, planned to record myself speaking and capture the echo simultaneously, prove it was real, document it scientifically. I started speaking. My name is Leah Friedman, and I have worked, the echo interrupted, at Violichka for 16 years, and I will die in this corridor in 6 months. I stopped breathing. The echo continued without me. I will bring a tour group. I will be explaining salt formation. I will collapse. Heart failure. Quick. Painless. But I will die here, and my voice will echo forever, finishing sentences for guides who come after, speaking words I haven't said yet, because here, in this corridor, I've already said them. I'm always saying them, always finishing, always echoing, always here. I dropped the recorder, ran, didn't stop until I reached the surface, didn't look back. I checked the recording later. It captured my voice starting the sentence. Then silence, no echo, no prediction, just dead air where the impossible words should have been, but I heard them clearly, specifically, my own voice telling me I had 6 months left. I should have quit, should have left the mine, should have gotten as far from Corridor 7C as possible, but I didn't, couldn't. The words kept echoing in my mind. 6 months, die here, heart failure, painless. I went back to the corridor, stood in the exact spot where I'd heard the prediction, waited for the echo to speak again. Silence. I tried speaking. Normal echoes returned. No completions, no predictions, just standard acoustic behavior. It was gone. Whatever had spoken through the echo was gone. Or waiting. I've been monitoring my health obsessively. Doctor appointments, EKGs, stress tests, blood work, everything normal, heart functioning perfectly, no indicators of failure, no reason to worry. But the 6 months are almost up. Tomorrow is the last day, the day the echo said I would die. I've scheduled myself off, called in sick, told them I need personal time, planned to stay home, stay safe, let the day pass without incident. But I can't, because this morning I heard it again. The echo, not in the mine, in my apartment, clear, distinct, my own voice speaking from the bathroom, from the kitchen, from the bedroom, finishing my sentences before I speak them, telling me things I'm about to think, describing actions I'm about to take, and every echo, every completion, every prediction is pulling me back, back to the mine, back to Corridor 7C, back to the spot where I heard my death predicted 6 months ago. I'm fighting it, trying to stay home, trying to prove the echo wrong, trying to change what it said was inevitable. But I know I'll go. Know I'll lead that tour. Know I'll stand in that corridor and explain salt formation and feel my heart stop because the echo has already heard it happen, has already recorded my final words, has already captured the moment 6 months before it occurs, And you can't argue with an echo that knows the future, can't change what's already been heard, can't speak different words when the corridor has already recorded what you'll say. I'm writing this now, documenting what I know, what I've experienced, what I understand about Corridor 7C. The echo isn't predicting the future, it's reporting it. It's hearing sounds that haven't happened yet, because in that corridor, time doesn't flow forward. It flows in loops, in circles, in echoes that return before they leave. And once you've heard your voice in that echo, you're part of the loop, part of the pattern, part of this permanent acoustic record of the corridor. I'll go to the mine tomorrow, I know I will. The echo has already heard me arrive, already heard me start the tour, already heard me explain salt formation to a group of 12 tourists from Germany, already heard me stop mid-sentence, gasp, collapse, already heard my last words echoing forever in Corridor 7C, already captured my voice, finishing sentences for future guides who will stand where I stood and hear predictions they can't escape. The echo is always right, always accurate, always true, because it's not predicting, it's remembering. Remembering things that haven't happened yet, but already have in the acoustic space where past and future exist simultaneously. I'll die tomorrow in Corridor 7C, and my echo will finish this sentence long after I'm gone. Some places collect sorrow the way the others collect dust, and eventually it becomes something you can see. My name is Nathaniel Cross, and I have worked as a guide at the Greyfriars Kirkyard in Edinburgh, Scotland, for 12 years. I walk tourists past 17,000 graves, tell stories about plague victims and famous Scots and the origin of the term saved by the bell, the usual ghost tour material, history mixed with folklore, mixed with documented fact. But there's one spot in the kirkyard I can't explain, an alcove between two 18th century monuments. Nothing special about it architecturally, just a recessed space maybe 2 meters deep. Stone walls, weathered inscriptions, same as 100 other corners in the cemetery, except people cry there. Not everyone, maybe one person per tour, sometimes two. They'll be walking fine, listening, engaged. Then they step into that alcove and start weeping uncontrollably, like they've lost someone, like grief has suddenly overwhelmed them completely. It happens so consistently, I've learned to watch for it, to position myself nearby, to have tissues ready, to speak gently when they emerge confused and apologizing and unable to explain why they broke down. I don't know what happened, they always say. I just felt this incredible sadness. I tell them it's fine. Old cemeteries affect people differently. Grief is complex, memory is powerful, standard explanations that seem to comfort them. But I don't understand it any better than they do. I've stood in that alcove hundreds of times, felt nothing, no overwhelming emotion, no sudden tears, just cold stone and Edinburgh wind and the weight of history that permeates every corner of the kirkyard. Until 3 months ago, when I found the photographs. They were hidden in a gap between two stones, old daguerreotypes, the kind of photographs that date to the mid 1800s, fragile, faded, protected in a deteriorating leather folder. I shouldn't have taken them, should have reported them to the Historical Society, should have left them for proper archival processing. But I looked at them first. 7 portraits, all different people, men, women, children, formal poses, serious expressions. The kind of photographs people took when cameras were new and exposures took minutes and you had to hold perfectly still. But their eyes were wrong, too intense, too focused, like they were staring through the camera, through time, through me specifically. I turned the first photograph over. On the back, written in faded ink, James Crawford, died 1854, still waiting in the alcove. The second, Margaret Donnelly, died 1856, still waiting in the alcove. The third, William Ross, died 1861, still waiting in the alcove. All 7 photographs had the same notation, different names, different years, all between 1854 and 1867, all with the same phrase, still waiting in the alcove. This alcove, the one where people cried, the one I'd been leading tours past for 12 years without understanding why. I researched the names, found burial records. All 7 were interred in Greyfriars. All 7 died young. Accidents, illness, one drowning, one childbirth, none of them old age, none of them peaceful, and all 7 graves were located within 10 meters of the alcove. I should have returned the photographs then, should have logged them officially, should have let someone else investigate. But I kept them, brought them home, studied them, looked at those faces, and tried to understand what they were waiting for, what kept them tethered to that small stone space. That night I dreamed about the alcove, dreamed I was standing there, surrounded by the 7 people from the photographs. They stood in a circle, staring at me, crying, silent tears that left no traces, grief so profound it distorted their faces, made them look almost inhuman. In the dream, they spoke in unison, "You have our faces, now share our grief." I woke up at 3 in the morning, shaking, disoriented. My pillow was wet. I'd been crying in my sleep. The next day, I brought the photographs back to the alcove, planned to hide them where I'd found them, pretend I'd never seen them, never taken them, never brought them home. But when I stepped into the alcove, I felt it, the same thing my tour groups must feel, overwhelming sorrow, crushing weight, grief so intense it made breathing difficult, made standing upright almost impossible. I collapsed against the wall, tears streaming, unable to stop, unable to understand why I was crying, or what I was mourning, or why it hurt so completely. I saw them then, the 7 people from the photographs, standing around me, crying with me. Their tears were visible, real, running down their Victorian clothes, dripping onto 18th century stone, pooling around my feet. "Why?" I managed to ask. "What are you waiting for?" They didn't answer, just cried, just stared, just waited for something I didn't understand. I stayed there for 20 minutes, maybe longer, lost in grief that wasn't mine, lost in sorrow that belonged to 7 people who'd been dead for over a century and a half. When I finally stood up, they were gone, but the tears on the ground remained. Wet, fresh, impossible. I photographed them, documented them, watched them evaporate slowly over the next hour, leaving salt stains on the stone, leaving evidence that something had wept there recently, really wept, actually cried tears, that left physical traces. I started visiting the alcove daily, between tours, after hours, whenever I could, trying to understand, trying to make contact, trying to learn what they were waiting for. The seventh visit, I brought my own camera, took photographs of the alcove from every angle, documented the space, recorded the environment. When I reviewed the images at home, I saw them, all seven, standing in the alcove, surrounding the spot where I'd stood, staring at the camera, at me, through me, and behind them, dozens more, hundreds maybe, faces I didn't recognize, people from different eras, different centuries, all crying, all waiting, all trapped in that small stone space. I examined the photographs more carefully, zoomed in, enhanced the details. That's when I saw it. My own face, in the back row, standing with the others, crying with them, waiting with them. I took that photograph 2 days ago, but in the image, I was wearing clothes I don't own. My hair was different, longer, grayer. My face was older, weathered, like I'd aged a decade, and across my chest, barely visible, text, Nathaniel Cross, died 224, still waiting in the alcove. This year, this month, next week, according to the date format common in Victorian death records. I haven't been back to the alcove since. Haven't led tours past it. Haven't stepped within 5 meters of it. I've rerouted everyone, made excuses, claimed maintenance issues, safety concerns, anything to keep people away. But I can feel it pulling me back. Feel the grief calling. Feel the weight of all those waiting souls drawing me in. Like I belong there. Like I've always belonged there. Like that alcove has been waiting for me specifically since I started working at Greyfriars 12 years ago. The photographs are still in my flat. I can't bring myself to return them, can't bear to hide them again. They sit on my desk. 7 faces I've memorized, 7 people whose grief I've shared, 7 souls waiting for something that looks increasingly like me. Tomorrow is my day off. I've planned to stay home, stay safe, stay away from the kirkyard and that alcove and those 7 graves that circle it like a prison. But I know I'll go. Know I'll walk through the gates. Know I'll stand in that alcove one more time. Know I'll feel that overwhelming grief and let it consume me completely. Because that's what the alcove does. It collects grief, preserves it, transforms it into something permanent, something that waits, something that calls to those who can feel it. And once you've cried there, once you've shared their sorrow, once you've seen your own face among the waiting dead, you become part of the collection, part of the grief that never fades, part of the alcove that makes strangers weep without knowing why, forever waiting, forever crying, forever trapped in sorrow that belongs to everyone and no one, that exists outside time, outside death, outside everything except that small stone space where tears fall eternally and grief becomes the only truth that matters. I'll join them soon. I know I will. The photographs have already documented it. The alcove has already claimed me. The grief has already marked me as its own, and tourists will walk past, and some will cry, and guides will offer tissues and gentle words, and I'll be waiting, watching, weeping, adding my grief to the collective sorrow still waiting in the alcove. There are spaces between steps where reality thins, and some people remember falling through them before they were born. My name is Simone Duchamp, and I have worked as a tour guide at the Catacombs of Paris for 18 years. I've walked thousands of visitors down hundreds of staircases carved into limestone bedrock 2 centuries ago. Spiral stairs, straight descents, emergency exits, service passages. Every stairwell in the network has been mapped, measured, and safety certified, except for the gap between the third and fourth steps of the southeast stairwell. The stairwell itself is unremarkable. 32 steps total, descends from street level to the second lower gallery, standard construction, 1827, used by maintenance crews and specialized tours. Not part of the main tourist route. But something is wrong with steps 3 and 4. I first noticed it during routine measurements 5 years ago. We were updating safety documentation, measuring tread depth, riser height, handrail clearance, standard procedure every decade. I was assigned the southeast stairwell, steps 1 and 2 normal, regulation dimensions, structurally sound. Step 3 to step 4, my measuring tape showed a 6-inch gap that didn't exist visually. I measured again. Same result. The tape showed 6 inches of vertical space between the steps that I couldn't see, that didn't appear to be there, that shouldn't exist. I called my supervisor, showed him the measurement. He measured it himself, got the same result. 6 inches of invisible space, 6 inches of nothing occupying the position where solid stone should be. Measurement error, he said. Faulty tape, magnetic interference, something. But we tried 5 different measuring devices. Digital calipers, laser measures, physical rulers. All of them showed the same 6-inch discrepancy. All of them detected space that wasn't visible to the naked eye. We documented it, flagged it for structural review, waited for engineers to investigate. They found nothing wrong. The steps were solid limestone, properly constructed, no gaps, no voids, no structural anomalies. According to every physical inspection, steps 3 and 4 were perfectly normal, properly spaced, completely safe. The measurements still showed a 6-inch gap. We left it in the records as an unexplained anomaly. Measuring equipment malfunction, magnetic field distortion, limestone composition affecting instruments. Pick your explanation. None of them were satisfying, but all of them were better than admitting the steps existed in 2 different states simultaneously: visible and solid, measurable and void. I stopped thinking about it, stopped worrying. The stairwell was stable. People used it regularly. No one had ever fallen. No incidents, no injuries. Whatever the measurement issue was, it didn't pose a safety risk. Until tourists started reporting sensations. Not everyone, maybe one person every few months, they'd be descending the stairwell, walking normally. Then they'd step from 3 to 4 and report feeling like they were falling, like the ground had dropped away beneath them, like they'd stepped into nothing. But they didn't fall, didn't stumble, didn't lose balance, just felt it, just experienced 6 inches of free fall that didn't physically occur. One woman grabbed the handrail and froze, refused to continue, said she felt herself falling for hours, said time stretched, said she experienced complete terror, even though objectively she'd just taken a normal step on a normal staircase. We started warning people, informing them the step might feel unusual, telling them to hold the rail, to step carefully, to expect a sensation of displacement. Most people felt nothing, walked through without incident, reported normal experience, but some felt it, and they all described it the same way. Falling, endless falling, time distortion, spatial displacement, a moment that felt infinite compressed into the fraction of a second it took to step from 3 to 4. 6 months ago, an elderly man stepped on that spot and said something that changed everything. He was maybe 75, French, local, not a tourist. He'd requested a private tour of the restricted sections. Academic interest, historical research, standard enough. We descended the southeast stairwell. He walked slowly, carefully, holding the rail because of his age. When he reached step 3, I gave him the usual warning. Some people experience a sensation of falling here. It's harmless. Just hold the rail. He stepped from 3 to 4, stopped. His face went white. His hand gripped the rail so hard his knuckles cracked. Then he whispered, "I remember this." "The sensation?" I asked. "The falling feeling?" "No." He looked at me. His eyes were wide, terrified. "I remember being here before, falling here, dying here, a long time ago, before I was born." I helped him to the bottom of the stairs, got him seated, offered water. He was shaking, sweating, completely disoriented. "What do you mean before you were born?" I asked gently. He took several breaths, composed himself. "I've had dreams my entire life, dreams of falling in darkness, of stepping into nothing, of time stopping. I thought they were just nightmares, childhood fears, but standing on that step I remembered. That's where the dreams come from. That's where I died in 1842, in this stairwell on that exact spot." "But you weren't alive in 1842. "Not this time," he said. I didn't know what to say, didn't know how to respond. He left shortly after, refused to go back up the southeast stairwell, took the emergency exit instead. I never saw him again. But his words stayed with me, started eating at me, made me research the stairwell's history, made me dig through accident reports and maintenance records and construction logs. I found something. June 1842. A worker fell during construction of the southeast stairwell, fell between the 3rd and 4th steps during installation, fell into a void that opened in the limestone, a cavity, a hollow space that shouldn't have existed. The void collapsed before they could recover his body, sealed itself, left him buried in solid stone, somewhere between steps 3 and 4. The construction continued. The stairwell was completed. The worker was listed as missing, presumed dead. No body, no grave, no marker, just a 6-inch gap that measurements detect, but eyes cannot see. I started interviewing people who reported the falling sensation, asked them detailed questions, documented their experiences carefully. 17 people over the last year, all of them described the same thing: falling, time distortion, spatial displacement. But 5 of them said they remembered it, said they'd experienced it before, said they knew they'd fallen in that exact spot in lives they hadn't lived yet, or had lived already, or were living simultaneously, in spaces between steps where time didn't flow linearly. One woman said she falls there every day, every life, every iteration, falls and never lands, never dies, never finishes falling, just exists forever in that 6-inch gap between 3 and 4 where measurements detect space that shouldn't exist, and some people remember dying in moments they haven't reached yet. I don't use that stairwell anymore. Reroute all my tours, take longer paths, avoid the southeast section entirely. But I think about it constantly, about that worker in 1842, about the void that swallowed him, about whether he's still falling, still trapped in that 6-inch gap that exists mathematically, but not physically, that measurements can detect, but eyes cannot see, about whether time works differently there, whether that gap is a pocket, a loop, a space where moments repeat infinitely, and the same fall happens over and over across centuries and lifetimes, about the 5 people who remembered falling there before they were born, about what it means to die in a space that exists outside normal reality, about whether death there is final or just another step in an endless descent through 6 inches that contain eternities. Last week I had a dream. I was descending the southeast stairwell, approaching steps 3 and 4. I could see the gap, could see it with dream eyes that perceive what waking eyes cannot. It was vast, deep, infinite, a chasm disguised as 6 inches, a void pretending to be stone. And at the bottom, if bottom existed, I saw them. Hundreds of people, falling, always falling, never landing. The worker from 1842, the elderly man, the 5 who remembered, others I didn't recognize, all falling together through space that shouldn't exist. And I saw myself falling with them, had been falling with them, would always be falling with them. In that dream, I stepped from 3 to 4, and I fell, and I'm still falling, and I'll never stop falling, because in that gap, time is a circle, and death is a loop, and 6 inches contains every moment I've ever lived, or will live, or am living right now, in spaces between reality, where measurements tell the truth and vision lies, and some people remember falling before they're born because they're always falling, always have been, always will be. In the stairwell gap where I fell yesterday, tomorrow, forever. Some reflections show you what you're doing in moments you haven't lived yet, and time becomes a circle you can't escape. My name is Owen Marshall, and I have worked as a tour guide at the Sedlik Ossuary in Kutna Hora, Czech Republic, for 14 years. The Bone Church, 40,000 skeletons arranged into chandeliers, pyramids, and coat of arms displays. Beautiful, macabre, deeply unsettling in ways that tourists find fascinating and I find routine. But there's one section where I feel something I can't explain. The 1700s Gallery, the oldest preserved area, original bone arrangements from when the ossuary was first constructed. We bring every tour through there. Standard route, essential viewing, and every single day at exactly 3:14 in the afternoon, I feel a cold breath on the back of my neck. It started 6 years ago, I was midway through my standard explanation of preservation techniques, describing how the bones were cleaned and arranged. Professional, routine. I'd given this speech hundreds of times. Then I felt it, cold air, exhaled breath, close enough to make the hairs on my neck stand up, close enough to feel distinctly human, like someone standing directly behind me, breathing slowly, watching. I turned around fast. Nothing. The tour group was standing where they should be, 3 meters away, listening. No one close enough to breathe on me. I continued the tour, dismissed it as a draft. Air circulation. Old buildings have strange ventilation, nothing unusual. The next day, same thing, 3:14 in the afternoon, same spot, same cold breath, same sensation of someone standing behind me, even though no one was there. I started tracking it, documenting when it happened, where, what I was doing, looking for patterns. The breath occurred every day, every tour, exactly 3:14. Always in the 1700s gallery, always during the same part of my explanation, always when I was facing away from the northeast corner, where a glass display case holds particularly well-preserved skulls. After 2 weeks, I tested it, stood in that spot at 3:14 without a tour group, alone in the gallery, waiting. 3:14 arrived. I felt the breath, cold, distinct, human. I turned around fast enough this time, spun completely, saw my own reflection in the glass case. But the reflection was wrong. It was facing the opposite direction, looking at the bones while I was looking at it, moving independently, breathing visibly in the warm room. I watched my reflection exhale, watched vapor form in front of its mouth, watched it turn its head slowly to look at me. We stared at each other, me and my reflection, both of us perfectly still, both of us breathing, both of us real. Then the reflection smiled, turned back to the bones, continued examining them like I wasn't there. I left, quickly, didn't finish my self-tour, didn't stay to investigate, just left and spent the rest of the day trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. But the next day at 3:14, same thing, cold breath. I turned, my reflection was there, facing the wrong direction, breathing visible vapor, acting independently. This continued for weeks. Every day, every tour, my reflection would appear at 3:14, would breathe cold air, would examine the bones while I tried to explain them to tourists who couldn't see what I was seeing, who couldn't see my reflection moving wrong, acting wrong, being wrong. I started avoiding that spot at 3:14, adjusted my tour timing, skipped the 1700s gallery, rerouted groups through alternative sections. But it didn't matter wherever I was at 3:14. I felt the breath, and if there was any reflective surface nearby, I'd see it. My reflection, facing the wrong way, breathing vapor in warm rooms, living moments I wasn't living. 3 months ago, I tried something desperate. I brought a camera, set it up in the 1700s gallery, pointed it at the glass case, recorded myself standing there at 3:14. I watched the footage later, frame by frame, second by second. At 3:13:59, I was standing normally, facing the camera, no reflection visible in the glass case because of the angle. At 3:14 exactly, I turned around, looked at the glass case. The footage showed me from behind, showed my reflection appearing in the glass. But my reflection wasn't mimicking me. It was standing in a different position, wearing a different clothes, looking at something I couldn't see, and it was breathing visible vapor even though the room temperature was 21 degrees Celsius. I watched myself in the footage reach toward the glass, watched my hand almost touch my reflection's hand, watched my reflection look up suddenly, look directly at the camera, and mouth words I could lip read clearly. Turn around. I watched footage me turn around, look at the camera, look confused, then footage me's expression changed, became terrified, started backing away from something, something the camera couldn't see, something between footage me and the camera. Footage me screamed, silent on the recording because the camera had no audio, but I could see the terror, could see footage me fall, could see something dragging footage me towards the bones. The footage ended, just stopped. 3:14:07, 8 seconds of horror, then nothing. But I was fine. I reviewed my memory of that day. I'd stood there, felt the breath, turned and seen my reflection, then left normally. No terror, no screaming, no being dragged. Whatever happened in the footage hadn't happened to me, had happened to a version of me, a reflection of me, a me that existed at 3:14 in a timeline slightly offset from my own. I stopped recording after that, stopped investigating, stopped trying to understand, but the breath continued every day, every 3:14, and my reflection continued appearing, continued breathing vapor, continued living moments. I wasn't living until yesterday. Yesterday at 3:14, I felt the breath, turned around, saw my reflection in the glass case, but this time my reflection was older, much older, gray hair, weathered face, tired eyes, wearing the same uniform but decades worn, decades faded, and my reflection was crying, silent tears running down its face, looking at something behind me with absolute horror. I couldn't help it. I turned to see what my reflection was looking at. Nothing. Empty gallery, no tourists, no threat, nothing. When I turned back to the glass case, my reflection was gone, but there was condensation on the glass, fresh, like someone had breathed on it heavily, and in the condensation, written in finger strokes, "I'm sorry I turned around." Below that, a date, December 21st, 2024. Today, I'm writing this now, before 3:14, before whatever happens happens, before I become the reflection, before I understand why my older self was crying, before I learn what it saw that made it sorry for turning around. It's 3:09 now, 5 minutes left. I'm in the 1700s gallery, standing in the spot, waiting. I can see my reflection already forming in the glass case. Younger, current. Me as I am now, facing forward, preparing to turn. And behind reflection me, I can see something forming, something the real me can't see yet, something that exists in the reflection, but not in reality, something that's waiting for 3:14, waiting for me to turn around, waiting for the moment when I see it and become the reflection forever. Trapped in glass, breathing cold vapor, a warning versions of myself across different timelines not to turn around. 3:13 now, 1 minute. The thing behind reflection me is clearer, taller, darker, made of bones, arranged in ways bones shouldn't arrange, moving in ways movement shouldn't work. 30 seconds. My reflection is mouthing words, The same words. Don't turn around. Don't turn around. Don't turn around. But I know I will. Know I have to. Know that in 15 seconds I'll feel the breath and I'll turn and I'll see what all my reflections have been warning me about, what my older self cried about, what trapped it in the glass, forever breathing cold air at 3:14 every day, trying to warn the me that still exists in reality. 10 seconds. The thing is reaching for reflection. Me. Long fingers, bone fingers, many fingers, too many, 5 seconds. I feel the breath already, cold, getting colder, like death itself breathing on my neck. 3:14, I'm turning around now. I see my reflection. I see what's behind it. I understand why my reflection was crying. I understand why I'll be crying forever. At 3:14, every day, in the glass, breathing cold breath on the neck of the me that still exists, still warns, still turns around despite the warnings. Because I did, because I'm doing it now. Because at 3:14, I always turn around. I always see it. I always become the reflection. Breathing cold vapor, forever warning, forever trapped, forever 3:14 in the 1700s, gallery where time loops and reflections breathe, and turning around means never turning back. Some ghosts don't haunt places, they haunt schedules, and being late means you've already missed your own death. My name is Pilar Vasquez, and I have worked as a tour guide at the Manila Chinese Cemetery in the Philippines for 8 years. The cemetery is unique. Mausoleums built like houses, air conditioning, electricity. Some even have full kitchens and bedrooms. The wealthy dead living better than most of the living. It's beautiful, strange, deeply reflective of our relationship with death and status. But there's one alcove I've learned to avoid. Small space, tucked between two larger mausoleums in the 1850s section. Stone bench, carved memorial for cholera victims, simple, unremarkable, except for the woman who stands there. She appears during every tour. Same woman, same Victorian mourning dress, black silk, lace veil, period accurate down to the jet beads and mourning jewelry. She stands perfectly still, hands folded, head bowed, like she's paying respects to the cholera victims. First time I saw her, I thought she was a historical reenactor. We get them occasionally. Enthusiasts who dress in period costume add atmosphere to the tours. Usually they coordinate with us beforehand, but sometimes they just show up. I approached her politely. "Excuse me, are you part of a tour group?" She didn't respond, didn't move, just stood there, perfectly still, perfectly silent. "Miss," I tried again, "we're about to start the tour here. Would you like to join us?" Nothing. No acknowledgement. No reaction, like she couldn't hear me, like I didn't exist. I continued the tour, explained the cholera epidemic of 1854, described the mass burials, the panic, the social disruption, standard historical information. The woman stood through my entire explanation, never moved, never looked up, just maintained her vigil. When we moved to the next section, I glanced back. She was gone, vanished. No one saw her leave. No one remembered seeing her arrive. The next tour, same thing. Same woman, same alcove, same stillness, same disappearance when we moved on. I asked other guides, showed them photos I'd taken. Do you know this woman? Is she part of some memorial society? They looked at the photos strangely. What woman? These are just pictures of the alcove, empty alcove. I looked at my photos again. They were right. Empty alcove. No woman, no Victorian mourner. Just stone and shadows. But I could see her, clear as daylight, every tour, every day, standing in that exact spot, never moving, never acknowledging my presence. After 3 months, I stopped mentioning her, stopped photographing her, just accepted her presence. The cemetery had stranger things. This was just another quirk, another mystery, another aspect of working among the dead. Then she spoke to me. I was leading an afternoon tour, running slightly behind schedule, started 15 minutes late because of traffic. We reached the cholera victim's alcove around 4:45 instead of 4:30 like usual. The woman was there, same position, same dress, same stillness. I began my standard explanation. In 1854, Manila experienced. She turned her head, looked directly at me. Through the veil, I could see her eyes, dark, sad, ancient. You're late, she said. Her voice was soft, accented, Spanish inflected Tagalog from a century and a half ago. I froze. The tour group didn't react, didn't hear her, didn't see her, just waited for me to continue. I'm sorry, I managed. You're late, she repeated. You always start at 4:30. Today you started at 4:45. You're late. There was traffic. I apologize. She turned back to the memorial. Don't apologize to me. You're the one who'll pay for it. Then she vanished, not gradually, just gone, between one blink and the next. I finished the tour in a daze, couldn't focus, couldn't explain properly, just went through the motions until I could get everyone back to the entrance. The next day, I made sure to start exactly on time. 4:30, precise, not a minute late. When we reached the alcove, the woman was there. She didn't speak, didn't look at me, just maintained her vigil like always. I felt relieved, started my explanation, finished without incident, moved on. But as we left the alcove, I heard her whisper, "On time today. Good, you're learning." I continued being punctual, started every tour at exactly 4:30, reached the alcove at exactly 4:42, never varied, never deviated. The woman appeared every time, never spoke again, just stood, just waited, just watched until 2 weeks ago when I was late again. Not my fault, family emergency. Sister called, sick child, needed help. I couldn't ignore it. Couldn't prioritize work over family. I started the tour at 5:15, 45 minutes late, the latest I'd ever been. We reached the alcove at 5:27. The woman was there, but different, agitated, pacing. Her dress seemed darker, her movements sharp, angular, wrong. When I started my explanation, she interrupted. Too late. You're too late. You've missed it. Missed what? Your appointment, your schedule, your time. You were supposed to be here at 4:42. You're 45 minutes late. Do you understand what that means? The tour group still didn't react, still didn't see her, still didn't hear her, just waited patiently for me to continue. I don't understand. I said. She stopped pacing, stood directly in front of me, close enough to touch, close enough to smell her perfume, old perfume, lavender and decay. I've been waiting here since 1854, waiting for someone who would arrive at 4:42 every day, waiting for someone punctual, someone reliable, someone who could take my place. You were perfect, consistent, always on time, until today. Take your place doing what? Standing here, mourning, keeping the vigil. I've been here 170 years. I've missed every appointment, every birthday, every death in my family, every moment of my life. Because I'm always here, always waiting, always mourning, and I was going to give you this honor, this eternal duty, but you're late. You ruined it. You broke the pattern. She reached for me, her hand passed through my chest. I felt cold, deeper than cold, like my soul was freezing. Now you don't get to take my place, she said. Now you get to join me, stand with me, mourn with me, but not instead of me. Alongside me, two mourners, two ghosts, two women who learned too late that punctuality matters, that schedules are sacred, that being late means missing the moment when you could have escaped. I felt myself splitting, like part of me was staying in the tour, part was stepping into the alcove, part was putting on black silk, part was folding my hands, part was bowing my head. The tour group didn't notice. They waited. Then one of them asked, "Is the guide okay? She looks pale." I tried to speak, tried to explain, but my voice came out wrong, distant, like speaking through water. "I'm fine," I heard myself say. But I wasn't saying it. The me in the tour was saying it. The me that remained, the me that wasn't standing in the alcove, wearing black silk and mourning for cholera victims who died 170 years ago. The tour continued. I watched myself lead it away, watched myself glance back at the alcove, watched myself see nothing unusual, just stone and shadows and empty space. But I was there, standing next to the woman, both of us in bulk, both of us motionless, both of us mourning. "You'll get used to it," she whispered. "The tours come every day. 4:42. Watch for yourself. Watch yourself lead groups past us. Watch yourself age and retire and die, and still lead tours as a ghost who doesn't know she's dead yet. Watch yourself become like us, like me, like all the mourners who were late, who missed their moment, who joined the vigil instead of replacing it." I wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to break free, but I couldn't move, couldn't speak, could only stand and mourn and wait. The next tour arrived, 4:42 exactly. I saw myself leading it, younger, alive, solid, explaining cholera victims and epidemic responses. I tried to call out, tried to warn myself, don't be late, don't ever be late, don't miss your appointment with death, because being early means escape, but being late means eternal vigil. But no sound came, just silence, just mourning, just standing in the alcove, watching versions of myself lead tours past us, without seeing us, without knowing that one day they'll be late, and they'll join us, and we'll be 3 mourners, then 4, then 5, then dozens, all standing together, all wearing black, all perfectly still, all perfectly silent, all perfectly trapped in the mourner's nook, where being late means being forever, where punctuality was salvation, where I stand now, where I'll always stand. 4:42 every day, watching tours pass, watching myself lead them, watching myself age, watching myself eventually be late again, watching myself join us again and again, forever mourning, forever waiting, forever late. Some rooms exist in blueprints, but not in reality, and sometimes you find yourself giving tours through spaces that were never built. My name is Felix Brenner, and I have worked as lead tour guide at the Imperial Crypt in Vienna, Austria, for 19 years. The crypt contains the remains of 149 Habsburg royalty in bronze and tin sarcophagi arranged across 12 burial chambers. I know every chamber, every sarcophagus, every inch of the underground complex, or I thought I did. The problem started when I was reviewing architectural blueprints for a restoration project. The plans were original, drawn in 1723 when the crypt was expanded under Charles VI. Beautifully detailed, historically significant, perfectly preserved. But they showed 13 chambers. We have 12. I counted, recounted, checked the plans against the physical space. The blueprints clearly indicated 13 burial chambers arranged in a specific pattern. But walking the crypt, I could only find 12. One chamber was missing. Between the Tuscany vault and the Franz Joseph vault, the plans showed it clearly. Room dimensions, door placement, sarcophagus positions, everything documented, everything measured, everything absent. I brought this to the Historical Society, showed them the blueprints, asked about the missing chamber, expected a simple explanation, architectural revision, changed plans, construction modification, but they had no record of changes, no documentation of modifications, no explanation for why the blueprints showed 13 chambers and reality showed 12. Perhaps it was never built, the archivist suggested. Plans changed during construction. Maybe they decided 12 was sufficient. But the blueprints were dated after construction completed, after the crypt was officially opened, after burials had already occurred, meaning the 13th chamber should exist, should have been built, should be somewhere in the physical structure. But it wasn't. I became obsessed, measured the crypt dimensions, calculated the space between chambers, looked for discrepancies, looked for hidden doors, secret passages, sealed rooms, found nothing. The space where the 13th chamber should exist was solid wall, no seams, no breaks, no indication that a door had ever existed there. The chamber had been planned, documented, drawn in precise detail, but never physically constructed, or had been constructed and then somehow removed from reality while remaining in the architectural record. I stopped investigating after 3 months. Accepted the mystery. Some historical anomalies have no explanation. Some blueprints show spaces that never existed. Some plans remain plans. Then the power outage happened 6 months ago. Evening tour, 16 people. Standard route through the 12 chambers. We were between the Tuscany vault and the Franz Joseph vault when the lights failed. Complete darkness. Emergency lighting should have activated. Didn't. Backup power should have engaged. Didn't. Just absolute darkness in an underground crypt with no windows and no natural light. I clicked on my flashlight, standard equipment for guides. Bright LED, powerful beam illuminated the immediate area and revealed a doorway that shouldn't exist, where solid wall had been, where I'd walked past thousands of times, where the missing chamber should have been according to the blueprints. A doorway, ornate, bronze, Baroque styling consistent with 1723 construction, standing open, darkness beyond. I stood frozen, the tour group clustered behind me, confused, disoriented, waiting for instructions. I shined my light into the doorway, saw chamber space, sarcophagi, exactly as shown in the blueprints. The 13th chamber, present, physical, real. Is this part of the tour? Someone asked. No, I said quietly. This chamber doesn't exist. But I could see it, could shine my light into it, could hear echoes from inside, suggesting physical space. Stone walls, high ceiling, the acoustic signature of a large burial vault. Then I heard my own voice from inside the chamber, speaking, mid-tour, explaining Habsburg burial traditions. My exact voice, my exact cadence, my exact words, giving a tour I wasn't giving, in a chamber that didn't exist, to people I couldn't see. The tour group behind me heard it too. Is someone else down here? No, I said. We're the only tour today. But my voice continued from inside the chamber, describing sarcophagi, explaining royal lineages, providing historical context, a complete tour, professional, thorough, exactly as I would deliver it. I stepped closer to the doorway, shined my light inside. The beam caught something. Movement. A figure, wearing a guide uniform, facing away from me, leading people I still couldn't see through a chamber that shouldn't exist. The figure turned, looked back at me, my face, my exact face, staring at me from inside the missing chamber. We made eye contact, me and myself, both holding flashlights, both standing in darkness, both existing impossibly. Then the other me spoke, not to the invisible tour group, to me directly. The power's about to come back. Don't come in. You're not supposed to be here yet. What do you mean yet? You'll understand when it's time. When the doorway opens for you instead of just being visible. When you step through instead of just seeing through. When you join the tour instead of leading it. The lights came back on, sudden, bright, blinding after the darkness. The doorway was gone. Solid wall, no seams, no bronze door, no chamber, nothing. The tour group blinked in the sudden light, looked around, confused. Did we just see that? One of them asked. The room that wasn't there? I'm not sure what we saw, I lied. Darkness plays tricks. The mind fills in gaps, creates patterns where none exist. But I knew what I'd seen, knew what I'd heard, knew that somewhere in a space that existed in blueprints, but not in reality, another version of me was giving tours. Leading groups through the 13th chamber, existing in architectural plans that never became physical. I've had 3 more power outages since then. Different times, different circumstances, each time the same result. Darkness reveals the doorway. The doorway reveals the chamber. The chamber reveals me giving tours to people I can't see. And each time, the other me says the same thing. Not yet. You're not supposed to be here yet. Last week was different. The power failed during an evening tour, darkness came. I clicked on my flashlight. The doorway appeared. The chamber opened. I saw myself inside leading the tour. But this time, the other me walked toward the doorway, walked toward me, stepped through. We stood face to face, me and myself, both in the darkness, both holding flashlights, both real, both solid, both existing in the same moment, in the same space. It's time, the other me said. Time for what? For you to understand, the 13th chamber exists. It's always existed, but not in normal space, not in the reality you walk through every day. It exists in the space between power outages, in the darkness between light, in the moments when visibility fails and architecture becomes uncertain. That's when the chamber is real. That's when I can give tours there. That's when you can join me. Why would I join you? Because you already have. Because you do every power outage. Because there's a version of you that lives in the 13th chamber permanently, that gives tours there, that exists in architectural plans that never became physical, and that version is calling you home, calling you to the space where you belong, where you've always belonged, where the blueprints say you exist even when reality says you don't. The lights came back. The other me vanished, not quickly, gradually, fading, dissolving, becoming transparent, until only darkness remained where darkness shouldn't be. I haven't told anyone, haven't reported it, haven't tried to explain, but I've been researching the blueprints more carefully, looking for details I missed, patterns I didn't see, and I found something. In the corner of the 13th chamber's architectural drawing, tiny text, almost microscopic, a notation, Felix Brenner, Lead Guide, 2005-2024. My name, my position, my years of service, listed as permanent resident of the 13th chamber, listed as existing in the blueprints, listed as having always been there, even though I'm here, even though I'm real, even though I walk through 12 chambers every day, giving tours to people who can see me. But maybe I don't. Maybe I walk through 13 chambers. Maybe I give tours in the missing room. Maybe I exist in architectural plans that show truth reality can't contain. Maybe during every power outage, I'm not seeing another me. Maybe I'm seeing the real me. The me that exists where I actually belong. In darkness. In uncertainty. In the 13th chamber that was built and unbuilt simultaneously, that exists in plans but not in stone, that opens when light fails and closes when vision returns. Maybe I'm the one who's missing. Maybe I'm the chamber that doesn't exist. Maybe reality is the blueprint, and I'm the space between what was planned and what was built. The power just failed again. I can see the doorway. I can see myself inside, leading the tour, explaining the Habsburgs, describing the sarcophagi, but this time the other me isn't walking toward the doorway. It's waiting, hands extended, welcoming, and behind it, I can see the tour group, finally visible, finally clear. They're all me, dozens of me, hundreds of me, all wearing guide uniforms, all giving tours, all existing in the 13th chamber that was never built but always planned, waiting for the next me to join them. The lights are about to come back. I can feel it. The charge in the air, the moment before illumination. But I think I'm going to step through first. Step into the doorway, step into the missing chamber, step into the blueprints where I've always belonged, where Felix Brenner, lead guide, 2005 through 2024, exists. In the 13th chamber, forever giving tours, forever missing, forever planned but never built, forever architectural, forever between light and darkness, forever home. Some flames burn without fuel, and the faces they illuminate have been watching much longer than you've been alive. My name is Esme Laurent, and I have worked as a guide at the Catacombs of St. Paul in Rabat, Malta for 10 years. The catacombs date to the 3rd century. Christian burial site, 24 separate complexes, thousands of graves carved into limestone, historical, sacred, peaceful in the way ancient tombs are peaceful, except for the deepest chamber, the memorial chamber, the oldest section, carved sometime around 280 AD. Small space, maybe 4 meters by 5. Simple altar, stone benches, burial niches in the walls, and one candle, red, thick, placed on the altar in a bronze holder that's probably as old as the chamber itself. The candle reignites itself every November 2nd, All Souls Day, the day we remember the dead. No one lights it, no priest, no caretaker, no tourist. It just reignites around 11:30 at night, every year, exactly the same. I discovered this during my 2nd year. I was closing the catacombs late, November 1st. Everyone gone, final walkthrough before locking up for the night. Standard procedure. I checked the memorial chamber. The candle was unlit, cold wax, no smell of smoke, no warmth. Dead. I locked up, went home, returned the next morning, November 2nd. The candle was burning, steady flame, fresh wax dripping, like someone had lit it hours ago. I checked the security logs. No entries overnight. No break-ins, no unauthorized access. The catacombs had been sealed, empty, locked, but the candle was burning. I asked the maintenance staff, "Did anyone light the memorial candle?" They looked at me strangely. "That candle lights itself, has for decades, maybe centuries. No one knows why. We just let it burn." "How long does it burn?" "Couple hours, then it goes out on its own. Next year, same thing. November 2nd, 11:30 p.m. It lights, it burns, it dies." I should have left it alone, should have accepted the mystery, should have treated it like the dozen other unexplained phenomena in a 3rd century catacomb. But I was curious, scientific, rational. There had to be an explanation: spontaneous combustion, chemical reaction, underground gas, something logical, something natural. So that November 2nd, I stayed late, positioned myself in the memorial chamber, sat on the stone bench, waited, watched the candle, waited for 11:30, 11:29. The candle was cold, unlit, normal, 11:30 exactly. The candle flared, bright, sudden, no spark, no ignition source, just flame appearing where no flame had been, burning clean and steady and impossible. I watched for 10 minutes, documented it, took photographs, recorded video. The flame burned consistently. Normal physics, normal behavior, only the ignition was impossible. Then I noticed the warmth. The chamber had been cool. Limestone underground stays around 16 degrees, constant temperature, unchanging, but the chamber was warming, quickly, noticeably. from 16 degrees to maybe 20, then 25, then warmer still, and I smelled something. Incense, old incense, the kind used in ancient Christian rituals, frankincense and myrrh, and something else I couldn't identify, something organic, something human. The flame grew brighter, larger, still not dangerous, still controlled, but more intense, more present, more aware. I stood up, started to leave, felt suddenly that I shouldn't be there, that I was intruding, that the chamber had business that didn't include the living. That's when I saw them, in the flame, not burning, not consumed, just visible. Faces, dozens of them, hundreds maybe, watching me, all of them smiling, all of them serene, all of them dead. I could make out details, age, gender, expressions. They weren't abstract, weren't symbolic. They were specific people, real people, dead people, gathered in a candle flame that burned without consuming. And they were all looking at me, not through me, not past me, at me, directly, personally, like they'd been waiting for me specifically to witness them. I tried to speak, couldn't. Tried to move, couldn't. Just stood frozen, watching faces watch me, watching the dead smile at the living from inside impossible fire. Then one face came forward. Older woman, kind eyes, weathered face, Mediterranean features. She looked familiar somehow, like someone I should recognize, someone important. She spoke, not with sound, with knowledge, with certainty that appeared in my mind, fully formed. "You're the 43rd, she said without speaking. "The 43rd guide to see us, to witness the gathering, to understand that death is not absence, just transformation, just relocation, just moving from stone tombs to candle flames, from buried silence to witnessed warmth." "What are you?" I asked without speaking. "The first Christians, the buried faithful, the ones who rest here but gather there." She gestured to the flame, to the faces, to the smiles. "Every November 2nd, every All Souls Day, we light the candle, we warm the chamber, we smile at whoever stays long enough to see us. Most leave, most run, most deny, but you're still here, still watching, still witnessing. That makes you special. That makes you one of us, eventually. I'm not dead, not yet, but you will be. Everyone will be. And when you are, you'll join us. You'll smile from the flame. You'll watch the 44th guide, the 50th, the 100th. You'll gather on November 2nd, forever, warmly, brightly, peacefully." The flame dimmed, the faces faded, the warmth decreased. By 11:38, the candle had extinguished itself. Normal temperature returned, normal silence, normal darkness. I left the chamber, locked up, went home, didn't sleep, couldn't stop seeing those faces, those smiles, that knowing certainty that I'd joined them, that death was just transformation, just relocation from body to flame. I've stayed every November 2nd since then. Watched the candle light itself, watched the faces gather, watched them smile and nod and welcome me silently to what I'll eventually become. Each year there are more faces, more smiles, more watchers, like the gathering grows. Like death adds members annually, like everyone buried in these catacombs eventually learns to manifest in flame on All Souls Day. Last year, I recognized someone, a guide who died in 2022. Cardiac arrest, sudden, tragic. We'd worked together for 3 years. But there she was, in the flame, smiling, watching, destined for me to join her. This year there were even more. including faces I'd seen recently, funerals I'd attended, people who'd died within the last 12 months, all gathered in the candle, all smiling, all watching. And this year, I saw something new behind all the faces, behind it all the smiles, behind it all the gathered dead. I saw myself, not dead me, not future me, not transformed me, just me, current me, standing in the chamber, watching the candle, exactly as I was standing and watching in that moment. Like the flame was showing me both present and future simultaneously, like it was confirming what the old woman had said, like it was proving that I was already part of the gathering even while still being alive, already transforming even while still breathing, already relocating even while still standing in solid flesh. I extinguished the candle tonight for the first time, reached out, pinched the wick, stopped the flame. The faces didn't disappear. They just moved from the candle to the chamber, from flame to darkness, from warmth to cold. They're surrounding me now, all of them, hundreds, thousands, all the faithful dead who've gathered here for 1700 years, all smiling, all watching, all waiting for me to understand. The candle has reignited. I didn't light it. I'm not touching it. It just flared back to life, brighter than before, hotter than before, more faces than before. And I'm warm, so warm, like I'm burning without being consumed, like I'm transforming without dying, like I'm relocating from flesh to flame without ever leaving the chamber. The faces are closer now, touching me. Their hands are warm, their smiles are kind, their welcome is absolute. I think I understand now. The candle doesn't reignite itself, we reignite it. The gathered dead, the transformed faithful, the ones who learned that death is just relocation, just transformation, just moving from one form of light to another. And I'm moving now. I can feel it. Feel my body staying in the chamber. Feel myself moving to the flame. Feel the transformation. Feel the relocation. Feel the warmth. I'm the 43rd, the guide who stayed too long, who watched too closely, who understood too completely. And next year I'll smile from the flame. I'll watch the 44th guide. I'll welcome them silently. I'll show them their future self, already waiting in the fire. I'll gather with the faithful dead. Every November 2nd, every All Souls Day, forever watching, forever smiling, forever burning without being consumed, forever warm, forever gathered, forever flame.